Hey everybody, and welcome on back to Minecraft Whip here, and today we are going to be talking about landscaping. Not crazy landscaping like building giant mountain ranges or building an entire custom forest or just huge farmlands like what we're seeing right here in front of us, but we're going to be talking more about what little things we can do inside of our Minecraft world to make them look so much better and so much cooler than they currently do. Minecraft has a lot of great things about it. As far as the terrain generation goes, they're very cool, but there's a few little tweaks that we can make to a large number of these to make them that much cooler. And this can help you build up your building ability to create something like what you're seeing here in front of us right now, being this giant custom biome that I am currently constructing inside of my survival world, completely in vanilla survival, placing every block down one at a time. It's taken a long time to do. But anyways, we are able to take these skills that I'm going to be talking to you guys here about shortly and turn it into something as amazing as this giant mountain range that you can still see is currently in progress. If you look on the right side right here, you're going to see a lot of that scaffolding in place of lining out and outlining everything that we're looking at here. And it can turn out very cool in the end, but that thing is a huge project to tackle. So let's go to something more simple first, where we can be talking about turning a Minecraft just generic cliff that you have in the game into something that looks a heck of a lot better just by adding in a little bit of stone and a little bit of like the custom tree action on top of it. Few tiny changes that we can make here and turns it into something really cool. So let's get into it. First and foremost, we're going to be talking about how to make some custom cliffways and have your just general cliffs inside of Minecraft look a lot better. This is more geared towards a smaller hillside than doing anything else. And you're going to see here that we're going to start just bringing in some stone and bringing it up along the edge of this cliff drop off that we have here. As mentioned, it is a pretty small scale, so we don't need to go too crazy on this, and we don't want to completely remove all of the grass. If we just turn this entire L shape here into stone across the board, it would look really boring. But adding in these few patches of rocky structures, then in between those we're going to have small erosion channels, you could call them, where we're still going to have that dirt and that grass coming down towards the center to make it look like that stuff is still growing down this way. Maybe those are the pathways that you could walk up to the top of this. It adds a lot more extra life and detail to this and helps this area feel a lot more connected instead of just a random blob of stone out of nowhere. It actually feels attached into the environment, and adding some bone meal in for some grass is a great finish. One step up from Little Hills, we're going to be touching on the mountain biome inside of Minecraft, going over to one of the extreme hills biome, which I believe should actually be the mountain biome, but you know, that's just me. We're going to be talking about how to add a gradient to these cliff faces that we see here inside the game, the side of these mountains, because let's face it, when it's all stone going along, or you have those weird patches of your andesite or your diorite or your granite, they can tend to look pretty dang ugly. So what we're going to be doing in here is we're going to working from a dark up to a lighter color here, going with cobblestone at the base, moving into some andesite, and then transitioning finally to leaving the stone at the top. So maybe if that stuff harder to reach, we can just leave it there at the top to begin with. And I think that's a great way to do it. A second tip for this one right here is coming down to the base where you can see us adding in all of this gravel and the coarse dirt down there. If you think about erosion and you go look at some mountains and things inside of, I don't know, real life, if you look at the base of them, typically you will see a lot of gravel and smaller stones and things like that just all over the area, obviously covered in dirt from things getting kicked up from animals walking around and all that good stuff, and some logs, so we're symbolizing those by our dead bushes in here, just sticks that fell off the top of the mountain. Anyways, it's a very realistic thing to see in the real world, so adding those into Minecraft can help being that transition period from your mountains going into your plains without looking really kind of wonky if just one thing starts and another one ends. Coming down from the mountains, we are moving into the river area, which I think is another great thing to be looking at improving inside of our Minecraft worlds. One of the first things that I do to improve these, and that I consistently do, is get rid of all of the gravel, all of the clay, and all of the sand in the bottom of your river. It just looks dumb. But we are going to be bringing that gravel back into this environment. You could also use the sand here instead if you want to use that for that lighter color instead. But if you look at the bend of a river, in real life, when you're going around, driving through the mountains, driving through anywhere, you'll see a lot of sediment buildup, which is basically all of the rocks are going to be floating down the river. Maybe you have some logs that came down the river, some big sticks, and they weren't able to make that turn around the corner. So it all kind of builds up on these corner banks. And so we're going to be symbolizing that here inside of our Minecraft world by having a lot of gravel, which you can kind of barely see here, along the bottom center of the river, and then having that build up section on one of these corners. And it can look really great and really believable believable, basically choose a direction for your river to flow, and anytime that you hit a hard curve, just add some gravel onto that curve and some coarse dirt around it, and throw in maybe some sunken logs or something like that. Just add some extra life to it, and it'll bring this area so much more to life, which I think is really cool. Then next thing I want to focus on here and talk about is that rivers are consistently surrounded by mud. So what we can do here is just adding in some coarse dirt dotted around this entire area so we can get that kind of symbolization of mud. Previously we could use soul sand for this, but soul sand now has the bubble column effect, so it's kind of a little weird to use in your rivers and things like that anymore. You could maybe use some brown concrete, or if you're able to get perma dirt, like permanent dirt, not the coarse dirt, you could use that in here as well. After that, though, we obviously want to add a lot of vegetation and life, because water brings life if you think about that. So we want to add a lot of life to the bordering side of the river. It's okay to have a bunch of stuff throughout here. One thing that I've recently fallen in love with using is a single dark oak sapling doesn't have the ability to grow a tree out of it. So if you at least put just one of them alone, or you could do two in a line, just don't make a 2x2 box out of it, and you add those as little shrubs along the edges of your river, and it feels like it's a baby tree sapling trying to grow up, which is really realistic for something that'd be along the side of the river. Then along that as well, I like adding in a bunch of bushes. I like adding in a lot of growth and over naturifying the areas is something I love doing inside of Minecraft. So we're bringing our jungle leaves in here, so they're a bit different than the trees inside of the surrounding area, and they can really add a lot of life to this one. I think it's a great way to finish some things off and just add that general atmosphere to our river, and you really know it's a river. Crossing rivers, going over mountains, and now moving through the plains, we are coming over here to the Minecraft Plains biome, which I think is a really cool biome if you give it a little bit of love. I really hate how they spawn all of those water patches throughout the entire area, so one of the first recommendations I usually have is pick about half of them and just remove them. And then the other half we'll be touching on here a little bit later. But first and foremost, what I wanted to mention in this is working on the curves of the Minecraft plain biomes. You can see a lot of them, like right where the character is now, there's those harsh straight lines that really don't look that great. My general rule of thumb is if you're trying to curve and modify landscaping, don't have more than 5 or 6 blocks in a line in a single point in time. Otherwise, it can tend to look very manicured. So if that's the look you're going for, then make those hard straight lines. But me personally, I like to over naturify things, as I've mentioned multiple times now. So I personally like to just kind of leave it as is. So it's all right to just kind of have going, doing its own thing. And coming back to these little ponds I mentioned, we're going to connect these ponds up here by adding a little bit of a winding, curvy creek bed going throughout here. And then that second pond is going to be dropping off all the way down there into that river that we were previously working on. I think it's a great way to do it. And the big thing about these is make sure they're very curvy and very windy. Then another way to make them even more believable and add some extra life to it is adding in small stones along the entire edge of the river. I typically go with just regular stone or using moss stone to make it look like it's been in the water for a really long time. Maybe some andesite in here too as well, but you can get very hectic very fast, so don't quite overdo it if you can manage that. But it's something that I really love to do here, and you got to make sure that you don't do just straight lines leaving the river areas. And the next one I want to talk about here is you can see me building up that little dirt patch right there, having coarse dirt surround it, adding in another small pond, and adding in a bunch of new flowers and just other things that aren't situated anywhere else in the area. This is very much meant to be like a small marshy area of just a flooded area next to the pond that's just kind of been there. It's kind of stinky. It's a marshlands, basically. It's a really small swampy area. And so we can really signify that by bringing in a unique plant for it. In this case, the lily of the valley, and a bunch of ferns and a few dead bushes over there. And I really think it kind of settles in that river pond area and really structures it and brings it into the rest of the atmosphere. And the next thing I want to talk about for the plains, if you're trying to go for something very naturalized and very overgrown, it's easy to overdo it. So you can see in here we bring in basically every single type of flower. It looks very chaotic. It can look really cool, but it also feels very chaotic. And if you look at it for too long, it's a bit too much. So what we're going to do here is we're actually going to tear out all of those peonies and just replace them back here with our rose bushes, and it can really help to bring everything back together. And the little flowers, make them in patches, not just scattered everywhere. Now that we've talked about laying out our little flowers and giving them patches instead of just a weird scattered pattern everywhere, the next thing to focus on inside of your plains biome is they can be very flat. They can be very empty. And one thing that we want to add in here is a few different trees. and how to situate your trees in your environment, I try and use that little trick of the sapling with the slabs placed on the lower half of the block above them, just kind of in a little square, and it can tend to work out pretty well. So I typically do that going throughout here and just adding in a few trees around the area. Don't completely turn a plains biome into a forest, just add a few next to the water sources that you have. It can look really cool. Another way to help improve your plains biome is to make it look like you actually live there. So maybe we add in a giant wheat field or add in a giant cattle pasture or something like that going throughout there. I think it can look really cool. Add a fence around it and it instantly looks like you live there. And hopefully you guys enjoyed all these. I do hope that some of you were able to find these tips useful for your own Minecraft world. I tried to make these a little bit more on the basic sides for simple things that you could do to help improve your world. Not everybody needs to be going around and building that giant mountain range that we're talking about. It's easy to come through here and take your own basic Minecraft world that you currently have and just modify it a little bit here and make it a little bit more set in the surroundings and have it being a bit more unique. One thing that I absolutely love is those little cliff faces that we're adding in along these areas. Just having some rocks in the middle of the area to break up this green grassy plain going all the way across everywhere. Just adding in those rocks can really help to nail things down and bring it all here together. But anyways, that is going to have to do it for today's episode. I hope you all enjoyed this one. Please hit that like button if you did enjoy, subscribe if you're new, and I will catch you on the flip side.